In the next 30 minutes here on News Night, averting further bloodshed, government's race against time to resolve Gbenyiri conflict that has so far claimed at least 31 lives, with the setting up of a mediation committee with a 1-month mandate.
The committee reflects government's commitment to peace, security and social cohesion, as well as our resolve to ensure the safe return, rehabilitation and reintegration of all affected residents.
You want to stay with us for details of that. Plus, can they really achieve their objectives within the 1-month period? Details shortly. Also, tonight, major tariff adjustment looms, with PULC weighing steep proposals from Gridco, ECG and Netco to hike charges by as much as 200% and move tied to government's push to wipe out the energy sector crushing debt.
Make a major tariff adjustment which will be due in fourth quarter of 2025 to reflect capacity charges, additional liquid fuel usage and additional capex.
In business, Ghana's inflation and Bank of Ghana's reserves are expected to dominate discussions during the IMF Fifth Program Review later this month.
And in sports, a destiny-defining day for the Black Stars as they come up against Mali in the next 1 hour.
You want to stay with us here on News Night. Plus, we tell you why there is a push tonight for a 5-year jail term for invigilators who supervise cheating at various exams across the country.
Anybody found with a phone in the examination hall would have their entire results cancelled. Talk about the coordinated form of it. I think that certainly there was something grave that went wrong in the course of the examination.
You want to join us with your views and comments all here on News. 9055111997 is the WhatsApp line to reach us on. And we start tonight with that raging conflict in Gbenyiri that has so far claimed more than 31 lives, with just 31 people, as we now know, have been confirmed dead. Some at least more than 13,000 displaced, forced to flee in search of refuge in neighboring Cote d'Ivoire. Government has tonight inaugurated a 7-member mediation committee with a challenging mandate to resolve the Gbenyiri land conflict. Now, the committee is now in a race against time to achieve its results, having been handed a 1-month mandate. Interior Minister Muntaka Mubarak has, in the last few hours, inaugurated the committee chaired by Mr. Mano Bombande, former Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister and head of the West African Network for Peacebuilding WANEP.
The disturbances quickly spread to surrounding villages and communities, leaving in their wake the loss of precious lives, the destruction of property, and the displacement of men, women, and children who were forced to flee their homes. In response and acting upon the directive of the National Security Council, the Ministry of Interior has constituted this Ministerial Mediation Committee. The committee reflects government's commitment to peace, security, and social cohesion, as well as our resolve to ensure the safe return, rehabilitation, and reintegration of all affected residents. Your work as a committee are outlined in your terms of reference. It's critical.
And that there is the Interior Minister, my colleague Collins Frimpong, just returned from that event and joins me in the studio. Collins, he talks about terms of reference.
Yes.
What do we know?
Right. So according to the terms of reference, they include the safe and dignified return of the over 50,000 displaced residents, assessing the scope and dynamics of the conflict, and evaluating losses and damage suffered. The committee is also tasked with promoting reconciliation and dialogue, recommending sustainable peace-building mechanisms, supporting the restoration of livelihoods, and providing actionable recommendations to strengthen local institutions.
And who are the members?
So the 7-member committee will be chaired by Mr. Emmanuel Bombande, as you said earlier on, and the secretary is Professor Ramatu Al-Hassan. The secretary is Dr. George Amo. And also we have other 5 members in there: Alhaji Collins Dauda, NP, and chair of the Committee on Lands and Natural Resources in Parliament. We have Reverend Father Lazarus Gbenyiri, who is the chairman of the Savannah Regional Peace Council, and also we have Dr. Festus Obin, who is also the West African Network, who is with the West African Network for Peace Building, and we have Sylvia Nobesino Esquire Acting Director of Women, Youth, Peace and Security Institute with the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. And the last one among the members is Professor Ramatu Al-Hassan.
I mean, if you look at their mandate, it sounds like a tall order. Did the minister indicate how much support the committee will get to execute this mandate?
In terms of monetary terms, he didn't talk about that, but he assured the committee of full logistical and secretariat support and urged them to partner with civil society organizations and faith-based institutions in carrying out its mandates.
The government of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama expects that you will conduct your duties with impartiality, transparency, and inclusiveness, engaging with all stakeholders, traditional authorities, opinion leaders, civil society, and security agencies, so that peace and trust can be rebuilt in Gbenyiri and its surrounding communities. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, the ministry will provide the necessary secretariat and logistical support to enable you to discharge your responsibilities effectively. I'll also encourage you to leverage partnership with civil society organizations, development partners, and faith-based institutions as you carry out this noble task.
And thankfully, we can speak to Emmanuel Bombande, dialogue and mediation practitioner, former Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister, also used to head WANEB, and he chairs this particular committee, joins us via Zoom right now. And I read the terms of reference. It sounds like a very arduous task. How do you plan to approach this?
Good evening, Evans. Good evening to you and all your listeners. So our first task immediately after were inaugurated is to begin thinking around how we design a process that would lead to inclusive dialogue as the minister provided. Now, keep in mind that for government and for the president himself, the preferential option is to pursue dialogue and mediation as a way of bringing back the type of trust that would be required for those who are displaced and for those who cross our borders in two different directions to be able to find their environment that they left secure and safe for them to want to come back and indeed to come back. And as the minister pointed out, Evans, some returns have happened, but not to the satisfaction of government. And so we want to immediately accelerate. How are we pursuing that trust building to secure the environment for people to come back to their communities? And so the stakeholder engagement would then be expansive to be as inclusive as possible, both even the victims who felt that they needed to leave their communities and anybody who remained. And so we want to take this as urgently but as diligently as possible. But let me add that the humanitarian dimension obviously is much more urgent, but we are pursuing both, that the rebuilding of trust also creates the environment for the safety that guarantees all the communities to want to sit together and dialogue. And the design that we have started immediately after we were inaugurated is to be as inclusive as possible, including the communities themselves, to be part of the roadmap, so to speak, that would lead us to the dialogue.
We also now have a cross-border dimension to this, considering that many of those who fled into Ivory Coast. What support are you getting there with the Ivorians who are helping host and give refuge to our compatriots?
So the good news is that our security agencies have been able to bilaterally engage their counterparts on the other side and to even allow our security agencies to reach out to those who cross the border in Côte d'Ivoire and to assure them of all the guarantees that the security is putting in place for their safe but dignified return back to their communities. In other words, the security agencies want to ensure that they don't come back to their communities and meet a situation that is undesirable for them to want to leave or go back to the situation of refugee. And we have also noted that to the north, there have also been people who went into Burkina Faso, and we are going to work on both sides. But so far, with the support and the cooperation of the overlord, the Yagbonwura, and all the chiefs and elders of the different communities, and the bridge building that started after the Honorable Minister, Mr. Muntaka, led the President's team to engage with all these very high-level traditional stakeholders. All we can do is to build on that and create the environment for dialogue that is progressive and that is inclusive for all to be willing to talk. And the outcomes would emerge from the communities themselves, and the support then would be to enable them to implement those collective outcomes as a way of sustaining the peace and making it long-lasting.
And I look at your reference, your terms of reference, safe and dignified return of those who fled. Last time the minister gave an update, he put the number, I believe, at 13,000. It could be way more than that. Then you also have to assess the scope and dynamics of the conflict, evaluating losses and damage, and then we're also promoting reconciliation dialogue. Is 1 month enough?
So if you look at the 1 month span, the emphasis during this 1 month is what are we going to do, as I have elaborated, to have an increasing number of returns that would be almost complete to the status quo ante. In other words, if we can get all the communities to return, that will already be a good start. But as we pursue that, we are simultaneously trying to identify with the communities inputting into it how the dialogue that we are emphasizing through the approaches that are mediation rather than commissions of inquiry will make the difference. And so we are hoping that in the next 2 weeks, we will have clarity on how that dialogue would happen and how it will be convened, and subsequently, therefore, the community engagement. We will then see at the end of the 4 weeks what it means in terms of the timeline.
Thank you very much. The Emmanuel Bombande is dialogue and mediation practitioner, former Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister, and used to also head the ONEP, West African Network for Peace Building. Also tonight, a major tariff adjustment is looming as the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission weighs up steep proposals from Ghana's power utilities. The Electricity Company of Ghana is demanding 225% increase in its distribution charge, while NETCO is pushing for a 174% hike. Gridco is also asking for at least a 70% jump in transmission charges. The companies say the cedi's sharp depreciation has wiped out revenues and left them unable to maintain networks or fund upgrades. Now, government insists the increases are part of a broader plan to tackle the energy sector's $3.1 billion debt. But the final call lies with PULC, and consumers fear higher bills may soon follow. In March 2025, Finance Minister Case Letter Forcing, in the 2025 budget statement, told Parliament the tariffs must go up to reflect the additional charges and ballooning debt.
To address the energy sector challenges, including reducing the quantum of large energy sector shortfalls, the following energy sector recovery program interventions will be implemented this year. First, Mr. Speaker, ECG and NETCO will implement a number of measures, including metering and implementation of private sector participation. Mr. Speaker, we'll also implement the liquid fuel to gas swap through an increase in end gas supply from 60 mmSC per day to 100 mmSC to take advantage of cheaper gas prices and others. Mr. Speaker, we will complete the IPP capacity renegotiation to generate some savings through negotiated lower fixed capacity charges and variable O&M charges. Mr. Speaker, as agreed with the IMF by the previous administration, we will implement the following ESRP measures to achieve the structural benchmark of the IMF program. Mr. Speaker, PULC will continue to implement the quarterly tariff adjustment to reflect changes in inflation, exchange rate, and generation mix. Mr. Speaker, PULC will also undertake a major tariff adjustment, which will be due in fourth quarter of 2025, to reflect capacity charges, additional liquid fuel usage, and additional CAPEX.
Well, it's an adjustment. An adjustment means it could go down, it could stay the same, or it could go up. The major tariff adjustment window has opened now, and some of the utility companies have started submitting proposals to the PULC. My colleague Caleb Blame joins me in the studio with what we're learning from those proposals. Caleb, mainly the focus there is around the distribution service charge. What is that?
So this is a component of the overall electricity tariff structure, and we have allocations to ECG, NETCO, and GRIDCO. So within the overall the electricity tariff, these agencies have their own tariff structures in there, and that's how they get paid. So that's what they use for maintenance, their day-to-day operations, and also staff salaries.
And so why are these distribution companies proposing this increment?
So all of them have the underlying factors, mainly because they say the tariff does not reflect the actual cost of power production. They also say the cedi has depreciated over the past 2 years heavily, which has impacted their operations. And they also say that this reform will be required to reduce the debt in the sector.
The main question really is, how will this affect consumers?
Okay, so if approved by PULC, consumers might face higher bills. Because, for example, if in the southern sector, that's where ECG operates, if you purchase 100 kilowatt hours per month, you would have to pay an additional 42 cedis if this is approved by PULC.
That is if the PULC agrees with the ECG.
Yeah, with the ECG. Now, in the northern sector, that's where NETCO operates. If PULC agrees, you have to pay an additional 98 cedis for 100 kilowatt hours per month. Now, that said, PULC does not always grant the full amount that's requested by the utilities. In 2022, ECG proposed 39 pesos per kilowatt hour, but PULC only approved 17 pesos. So this time around, we're also waiting to see what the regulator will say.
Thank you very much. I want to bring in the Deputy Ranking Member on the Energy Committee in Parliament. He's also the former Deputy Energy Minister. Joins us on the line right now, Collins Adomako Mensah. I'm grateful, Mr. Mensah, for your time here on Newsnight. So we've heard and seen and read the proposals from both ECG, GRIDCO, but also NETCO. ECG, of course, is the one that we are all watching very closely. 225% increase is what they're asking for. Is there any justification for that number?
Absolutely not. Good evening to yourself. Good evening to your listeners. First of all, I have not read the proposals. I'm sure it was sent directly to PULC, and the media has picked it up. I have not read the entire document, and I'm happy it's just proposals. History will tell me that normally the energy companies will bring in proposals, but the final figure that is approved by PULC mostly are a reduction. I just cannot see how PULC at this particular point in time will accept an increment of 225% on electricity. I just cannot understand how that is possible. But be that as may, let's wait and see what the PULC will say. Don't forget that the minister, in presenting the budget, gave us an indication of what the fourth quarter adjustment is going to be, and he termed it as a major adjustment in the fourth quarter. Don't forget that between the first and second and third quarters, electricity has gone up by close to about 17.25%. Interestingly, during the second and third quarter adjustments, PULC indicated to us for the first time that the cost of fuel has been added into the tariff calculations, which used not to be the case. When the one Ghana cedi was being proposed in Parliament, we were told that it's going to assist in purchasing fuel and to pay some debts. But the minister did indicate to us that even the 1 cedi will not be enough to take care of the fuel costs. And so when we saw that cost of fuel has finally been included in the tariff adjustments for electricity, we were not too surprised. However, we asked questions. We asked questions because there are three major components that normally leads to an adjustment: interest rates, inflation rates, the exchange rates, normally price of natural gas. We have experienced some relative stability in the exchange rate situation, and the cedi have become stronger. So we're hoping, even during the third quarter adjustment, that there was going to be a reduction. Unfortunately, we saw an increase. Leadership of the Energy Committee met the PRC, management of PRC, because we anticipated a reduction because of the positive nature of our exchange situation. They explained to us that there were some arrears that had to be taken care of, which have not been done. And so we should bear with them. Our hope was that in the fourth quarter, we're rather going to see a reduction. And we've just been blown away with this magnificent figure of 225%. I just hope and I pray that it remains as a proposal.
I mean, considering everything that has happened, do you anticipate it's an adjustment? So either it stays the same, it goes up, or it goes down. Where do you stand on this? Should we simply expect an increase?
As I said, I will be surprised because the last meeting we held with the management of PRC, the indication they gave us was that the gains we've made on our exchange rates could not reflect because there was some arrears. And they had indicated to us that all the arrears have been taken care of.
So you're expecting a reduction?
So I'm rather expecting some reduction, even if there's going to be an increase, not 225%.
Yeah, if it's going to be an increase, what do you think will be fair, knowing what you know and what you've been told?
I cannot put a figure to it, unfortunately. But obviously, 225% cannot be a correct adjustment to make at this particular point in time.
Collins Adomako-Mensah, thank you very much. He's a ranking on the Mines and Energy Committee in Parliament, also the former Deputy Energy Minister. Grateful that you join us with your thoughts on this. I want to hear from you on this particular subject. This will obviously affect your pocket, but it's been debated now. It's time for you to make your voices heard. And George will join me pretty shortly and on with the latest on the world of business as we build up to that very crucial World Cup qualifier the Black Stars will be taking on shortly. But before that, though, there's a push tonight for invigilators who assist candidates cheat to be slapped with a 5-year jail term. And it's coming from renowned educationist Professor Stephen Gbenyiri, who has warned that the politicization of BECE results as proof of government success in education is eroding integrity in the system. Now, reacting to JoyNews' latest documentary, Dark World of BECE, which revealed how some GES officials, supervisors, head teachers, and invigilators turned the exams into an organized crime syndicate. Professor Adai said the society is losing its values. We'll hear from him pretty shortly, but here's an excerpt of the documentary put together by G8 Probe's Francesca Enchel.
Exam materials for candidates to commence writing. Vigilators were invited by the supervisor to a meeting with the headmistress of the host school, Derby Avenue RC. She announced a daily 60 cedis gift for each invigilator for the duration of the examination.
We said we have examine for you 60 cedis a day, it is 50 Ghana a day. They'll give it to you all. We should be making it every day 60 Ghana, every day 60 Ghana. So that you know we are stated for you for the week because we are public schools.
I mean, we would like to take this daily. Yes. What is it?
So after the week, we'll bring it.
Yes.
Candidates were also instructed to give their invigilators money at the end of every day's examination. At the St. George's Anglican Basic School Exams Center, payment was made in bulk. The supervisor handed envelopes containing 400 cedis to each invigilator.
Any payment that is made in the course of the examination to an invigilator, a supervisor, is illegal. It is coming from WAEC. WAEC does not pay money in the course of the examination. We don't do that.
Not many schools wrote the final paper, so for the centers investigated, the exams ended on the 17th of June 2025. Days earlier, candidates at Derby Avenue were informed to prepare financially for an offertory called the Asada Offertory, which will be collected before the start of the final papers at the center.
And you want to catch the full documentary, it's on many social media platforms, but it's also going to be live on the JoyNews channel at 8:30 tonight. We can now hear from Professor Stephen Adai, who's calling for urgent reforms and stiffer punishment.
Every student doesn't get the same, but we have synchronized it. The difficulty of the questions are the same in the sense that, but very, because you can generate it. Once you set one major one, you can replicate it so that in a package of hours, they do it on the computer straight away anyway. But even if you want to go to Shiromwasi where nobody will have an access to computer, you have the 100 questions in the pack for chemistry. Each one of them is different and packaged. So there are, at this moment, we have the tools to be able to do so. Again, the idea of the invigilators coming from the GES, I think that we must stop it. Let WAEC recruit its own invigilators, and they are deployed only at the last minute. Why? Because you wouldn't know whether you are going to Kumasi or you go to Brahmanabune. So that will be different. So in the WAEC side, and since the time will not allow us, I can go through a lot more that WAEC can do. But that is the end.
Professor Stephen Adai there. So live your news tonight on Joy 99.7 FM. And George Face here with the latest from the world of business. Hello, George.
Hi, Evans. And coming up in business, Ghana's inflation and Bank of Ghana's reserves expected to dominate discussions during the IMF 5th program review later this month. And engineers and planners urges public to disregard purported statement coming from owners for Zuma Resources insisting the takeover deal has been finalized, securing the necessary approvals. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one stop shop for all your office essentials. Synthesis tanks and Pepsodent Herbal and Charcoal. Let's now settle for the details. The country's inflation performance and Bank of Ghana's reserves are expected to dominate discussions during Ghana's program review later this month with the IMF. There is more in this report.
This review will focus on the country's economic data ending June this year. However, some of the critical areas that will be on top of the agenda during the meeting will be the performance of inflation over the past month and what should government be doing to sustain the recent good run, as well as whether there might be the need to introduce some fresh measures should inflation rates start going up later this year. Again, what can be done to sustain those levels if Ghana should get into a single-digit inflation range next year? Ghana's international reserves have hit record levels based on recent development in the economy, but are there any threat to these reserves? And what is the Bank of Ghana doing to ensure that it has not end up using all these reserves to defend the Ghana cedi? Another issue that has come up strongly is revenue and what is government doing to improve the situation. The IMF is raising this question now due to the fact that the Ghana cedi's sharp appreciation has impacted badly on the country's revenue. If Ghana passes this 5th review, it could be getting some $360 million that could hit the Bank of Ghana's account by end of October this year.
And that is a business desk report. Now, mining services firm Engineers and Planners is urging the public to disregard a statement that is coming from Zuma Resources. According to Engineers and Planners, this deal has been finalized, securing all the necessary regulatory approvals and share transfers. Bobby Banston is lawyer for Engineers and Planners. Has been speaking to my colleague, Darrell Cow.
You made reference to a statement that you said was issued by an entity claiming otherwise. Have you seen that statement yourself?
I have seen that statement. I have it in hand. I could read bits of it for you.
No. Can you tell me who signed that statement?
Well, it doesn't have a signature to it. Unless, of course, if there's a name at the end of it for media inquiries from Priyanka Dutt, account director, Rastrum, for any further information concerning this.
Have you found out what Rastrum is?
You can help us with that information.
A simple Google search will show you that it's a PR company. So the statement you have, it's as if Multimedia, Multimedia Limited has issued a statement, and the statement it's not signed by any officer or employee of Multimedia, and the statement is rather signed by, let's say, another entity. And so you know how to treat those statements. And so, like we've indicated, as far as EMP is concerned, it has completed all the legal requirements to acquire all the equity interest in the entities that own the projects. And any person who is claiming otherwise would have to present a legitimate claim.
And that is the lawyer Bobby Banson speaking to my colleague Darrell Kwao on the Business Live on JoyNews earlier on today. Now, international relations ex-Professor Vladimir Chidanso is urging Ghana to push for a review of a decision by the Millennium Challenge Corporation not to support Ghana next year due to delays in finalizing the debt restructuring deal. Ghana has been taken off the list of countries that could be benefiting from the corporation's support going into next year. Professor Chidanso says that the time has come for Ghana to take some tough stance on these issues.
We want to be resilient and dig our own way out and not rely, because if you rely on this permanent, then you will see that you are a certain when they will. So for me, yes, automatically can review. But if they don't, let us be resilient in our, let us understand what is at stake. Because what they might be demanding of us might be some security guarantee. Give us your airspace for something, or give us an airbase, or give us whatever it is, which they are doing to almost every country. And they've done this to Ivory, and they are building.
And that is the international relations expert, Professor Vladimir Chidanso. And that's all for business on Newsnight, and the events you are getting ready for. The do or die game against
it's a do
Mali
or die because we didn't do as expected.
And for the World Cup, there has to be a must.
We have to go, especially because it's in Trump land too. You know, so I know many of our friends want to take advantage, to sneak in back into that country. But listen, there's a fantastic gaming prospect now, and Muftar Nabila joins me to look forward to that particular game. Tell us about this.
Game that could determine whether Ghana will still be in pole position to qualify for the FIFA World Cup or not. As it stands now, the Black Stars have got just 1 point seated at the top of the Group I. So clearly, Otto Addo is very much aware of this, and he has made changes to the lineup that started against Chad.
Let's go through that now.
We have Benjamin Asari in post. Caleb Renchi keeps his place. Jonas Ajete also keeps his place, but Jerome Opoko, he has been dropped to the bench for Mohamed Salisu. Thomas Partey, whom we were made to understand that was ill prior to the game against Chad, gets a start later today. And Kwesi Sibo, who plays for Real Oviedo, he came in because Suleiman Ibrahim got injured and had to be flown back to Bologna. He also gets the opportunity to start. John Ayew also starts. Antoine Semenyo, Gideon Mensah, Mohamed Kudus, and Alexander Jiku. These are the men Otto Addo is trusting to line up against Mali later tonight.
And it's all here live on Joy 99.7 FM, correct?
Exactly. We'll have commentary here, and my colleague Victor Achutamaklo is currently in the stadium with Mubarak Haruna and Michael Frimpong to bring us live commentary from the grounds.
You want to stay with Mtao and the team, because right after this batch of commercials, we're going to be bringing you a full live commentary of that particular game, and everybody's praying that we win this one, and then it's easier with the next game, right?
yeah. If we win, it will be very easy, because if we win this, we'll be going away to play Central African Republic and come back home to play Comoros. So Ghana will have an advantage of qualifying if they secure a win tonight.
Okay, stay.